In this episode of What Is It Wednesday, we're going to show you all about this tool. Why is this tool so important? Why do you need it? Why should this be in your plumber's bag? We're going to tell you everything about it and why it's such a lifesaver, and it all starts right now. Jeff here. Welcome back again here to the channel where we give you world-class home renovation tips. We teach you everything about renovating your kitchens, your bathrooms, your floors, engineering disasters, and tool reviews. And today we're showing you about this. Now, if you've never seen this before, this is a very useful tool for plumbing. And this solves an age-old problem of trying to solder your copper pipes when there's water in the pipe and there's nothing you can do to get the water out of there. This is called a Jet Swet. So I'm going to show you how this works. So this particular Jet Swet set that I have, this is a kit that has three of the most common types in here for the 1/2 inch, the 3/4 inch, and for the 1 inch pipes as well. So I got this one off Amazon and I paid $160 for this, plus it had free shipping. So that's how much it costs when you buy this whole kit that comes with the 1/2 inch tool, the 3/4 inch tool, and the 1 inch tool. And there's room in here to go higher up too, like 1 inch and higher. And there is a kit that has all 5 pieces in there that's something like $260 or something like that. You can also buy the most common one, which is just the 1/2 inch tool by itself, but that just comes in a package and it doesn't have any kind of case or anything, so I just wanted to let you know about that. So I'll put links to all 3 of these tool kits in the description below for you to go check them out on Amazon. So you can see why, even if your average homeowner or DIY weekend warrior wanted to buy one of these 1/2 inch Jet Swets here, you know, at $45, most people aren't willing to shell out that kind of money just for a tool that they might use once in their lifetime. So that's why, for the most part, people use the bread trick, and that's why we showed it on that previous video, the one that all of the arrogant plumbers were coming on there and commenting about, that we told you about. So make sure you go and check that video out too. We'll put a link to that in the cards at the very end of this video for you to go straight to it and check it out. I think you'll be more amused by the comments than the actual video itself. What this Swet Jet does is it sort of replaces the old plumber's bread trick. And about 3 years ago we did a video showing you how to do the plumber's bread trick. It's one of our more popular videos. You really should see it. I'll put a link to it down in the description below. But what was interesting about that is you take a piece of white bread and you roll it up into a ball, a tight little ball, and you shove it back into the pipe with a pencil, and that holds off the water long enough for you to make your solder connection. And then you just gush the water real quick and shoot the bread into a bucket when you're done. Now, the problem on this video is we attracted so much hate from all the plumbers out there. There's a lot of arrogant plumbers, and I've dealt with trollers spreading hate for years, okay, on YouTube. There's just a lot of losers in the world, folks. And nowhere will you see it more than on YouTube. But anyway, we attract so many hateful, arrogant plumbers. I think plumbers are the most arrogant people on earth. They come in there calling us names, this, that, and the other. Oh, that's so unprofessional, and blah, blah, blah. And coming in, riding in on their high horses and cutting us down and insulting us because we're using bread, and it's so unprofessional. And, you know, like, they come in like their fecal matter doesn't stink, you know, and just condescending to us and everything. But what they don't realize is the average homeowner doesn't have a couple of $100 lying around to buy a tool set like this. And nor would they. And even if they wanted to, they couldn't, because they don't sell these tools at Home Depot or Lowe's. These are professional grade tools that you have to go online to buy them. You can only get them online. So anyway, many of these trollers, they completely missed the whole purpose of that video. That was a DIY video to show the average guy how they, with a little $40 torch that they could go buy at Home Depot, can make that happen, can make that solder connection happen. That was not a video to teach plumbers how to solder. So the whole purpose of that video sailed right over their heads. The train left the station and those arrogant plumbers weren't on it because they were so inebriated by their own arrogance. And a lot of name calling, and of course on that other video I made one tiny little mistake where I fluxed the inside of the pipe instead of, you know, I did the outside, but I fluxed the inside too, which, you know, you're not supposed to do. And I even admitted it right there when I did it. But these guys all come in like they want to be the first one to point out, big bad Jeff, made a mistake and ruined the whole world, and what a bad guy I am because I fluxed the inside of the pipe. And they were too stupid in their arrogance to see that I was using water-soluble flux. And yeah, they accused me of all sorts of things, like not deburring the pipe, which I did, and the deburring tool was even seen right next to the pipe there on the curb. Okay, so the age-old problem that we find ourselves in here is, okay, so you have a fitting that you want to solder onto your copper pipe, and like a responsible person, you go and you cut off the main water in your house. The only problem is sometimes it'll leave like a trickle of water coming out, and anybody that's ever done plumbing knows, folks, if you ever have any kind of water in your pipe, you cannot solder. It will not. You can work till the cows come home. You can get the biggest, baddest, hottest torch around, and it's not going to work because there's still water in there, and that water cools the pipe down to the point that the solder will never melt. So that's your dilemma. That's your engineering dilemma that you are stuck with. Okay, so this is where your Swet Jet comes in, and I'll show you how this clever little tool works. So what it does is if you have water leaking out of your pipe, you stick it in, and pretty much like this. And the idea is you'll tighten this with a wrench here, this tension nut here, and it will expand that rubber gasket inside the pipe here, which will block off any more water flow. So now you'll be fine from here on in. So then you can just solder your copper fitting here right onto the pipe. So let's show you how that works. Okay, so what I've built here is just this little test apparatus here, which has a piece of pipe here, and I have a female adapter here to plug the hose onto. What I'm going to do is turn the hose on to just give you a trickle simulation here to show you what we're talking about. Okay, so here I've turned the water on here to show you. So what we've got here is what I call just kind of like a fast trickle. We're not gushing water, it's not 60 psi like the normal pipe is here, but it's just enough there that that kind of water is not going to allow you to solder at all in the pipes. And of course I'm wearing gloves, and I hate it when I see plumbers who do soldering like this and they're doing it with their bare hands. And the reason is because their hands get oils and stuff all over the place. You can contaminate the area where you're soldering. But anyway, we're going to remount this pipe, and I do the interior ream. Then I'm going to do the exterior ream. So the exterior ream kind of gives you a little bit of a slanted surface there that makes it easier for you to slip your fitting on. Love using that tool. It's so much easier and quicker than using the emery cloth or the Scotch-Brite, and it comes out perfect every time. Okay, so again here you can see we're using water-soluble flux. And we don't go crazy with the flux, you just need enough to make a nice thin coating around it. Okay, so now we have the fitting here that's cleaned out on the inside, and we're just going to take a little bit of flux and hit him on the inside as well. So both surfaces now have a little bit of flux, and I'm just going to stick this on the pipe. He's all the way on there now. Alright, so now I'm going to show you something I always like to do. Now remember the principles of why we're using flux, okay? Flux goes in between the two fittings there, and it's what attracts the solder. It allows the solder to flow. Solder will only flow where there's flux, and it won't flow where there is no flux, right? So what I always like to do is I don't like to see globs of solder forming out here on my pipe. So I will always take my cloth and wipe off any flux that might have been there, so that when the solder comes out there, it won't have anywhere to go. It won't cling to anything. It'll stay and make a nice ring right around the fitting there. That's just me. That's the way I like to do it. Okay, so before I go ahead and do the soldering, we always want to make sure safety first. Gloves on, eyewear on, okay? There's fire extinguisher close by, and you want to be situated where you can reach it very quickly if you need to. And all unnecessary items will be cleared out of the way. Okay, so what I do is I take the end of the Swet Jet and stick it right into the pipe. And you're supposed to stick it in as far back in as it will go, and while still leaving clearance here for this tensioning nut. So you hold this up here like that, you stick the wrench on there, and you just start tightening it. And as you tighten the tensioning nut here, what's going to happen is that rubber gasket inside there is going to balloon out and press against the wall of the pipe. And that's going to make it so that there will be no more water flow. Okay, so now once we have that gasket in there tight and we see that the flow of the water has stopped, I can move this back out horizontal now. So as we pan over here and look, you can see that the Swet Jet is all the way into here and the gasket's somewhere over here right now. So there's water in this pipe right up to that point, but we're hoping it's far enough away from here that we'll be able to heat that up right there and solder it and get it flowing. All right, so here's my lead-free solder that I'm about to use here. See, lead-free. And my rule of thumb is, since this is a 1/2 inch pipe, I usually bend about 1/2 of an inch of it, and that's how much I'm going to allow melt when I go around the edge of this fitting here. See? So I always like to use my shop vac to remove out any excess water that might still be in that pipe in the open part of it. Okay, now I always put the flame to the fitting, not to the pipe, because the solder will flow directly to where the heat is. So I always try to come in underneath, let the heat rise up and evenly heat up the pipe there. Now because there was probably still a teeny bit of water in there, it might take a little longer. We'll see. It's not ready yet. I'm losing my blue flame too. Hang on. It's almost there. Okay, then I'll go around the back side of it. Just touch it a little bit. You don't want to do too much, because any solder that doesn't go inside the joint will stay outside the joint. Okay, now this is the part where everybody gets it wrong, because you're supposed to let it cool down normally down to room temperature. You don't come in with any wet rags, you don't spray any cold water on it, you don't even come back and flux the outside. Like I know a lot of guys like to flux the outside while it's still hot and get it to bubble and fizz and clean up the solder a bit. Unfortunately, that cools down the pipe too rapidly and it can cause cracking of your solder joint inside. So you just let it come down to normal room temperature. Alright, so now once we've cooled down, you can either use a wet rag, you can use a baby wipe. I like to use my Amway LOC wipes here to wipe them down, get it nice and clean. Make sure there's no flux residue on the outside. You do want to make sure after your whole soldering joint is done there that there's no flux anywhere. That would cause corrosion over time. It could actually cause pitting in that solder joint of yours, and before you know it, you'll be springing leaks. Okay, so now that we know the operation was a complete success and the patient didn't die, it's time to wake the patient up now, pull him back out of anesthesia. We're going to take off the Jetswet. We're going to remove the Jetswet here. I've turned on the water. It's a little bit of leakage over here because it's under pressure. Oh, this thing might actually fly out on its own. Watch this. So you loosen this first here and watch what's going to happen. It's going to actually shoot out on its own here. See that? That's what you want to avoid. I turn on the water at a much higher pressure just to show you, but that's what you want to avoid. So now to loosen this, you just loosen it with the wrench here. And you'll feel it kind of give way like it's going to get loose, and see the water pressure is trying to push it out. So what you do is you put some downward pressure on it and just let the gasket kind of pin itself against the wall of the pipe before you bring it out. So you just wiggle it around a little bit like this. Don't let it come flying out. Make sure you're always holding it. and then just right there, it's going to come out. And there might be a little gush of water. That's it, just that little bit. Make sure you're ready for it with a pan, and that's it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what the Swet Jet does. Well, so now you know what a Swet Jet tool does. It's a pretty cool tool, huh? And if you like this video so far, hey, go ahead and smash that like button down below. And be sure to click on that subscribe button down below as well, and click the gray icon next to it. And make sure your alerts are turned on, so that way when you hit that bell icon, it will alert you every single time we upload a video, so you'll never miss another quality video like this one. Well, we appreciate every single one of you coming here and joining us tonight for this. We'll see you on the next one.